Hello and welcome to episode 13 of series 1 of Becoming Bob. I'm Alex, and this is the final episode in the first series of Becoming Bob. In this episode, I'm painting along with the episode titled Final Reflections of the Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. This episode's a little different from most of the other episodes in the series. Instead of just Bob being there painting a painting and telling us how he's doing it, he's actually there answering questions from viewers. Son Steve there with him asking the questions. And as he's doing so, he kind of accidentally paints one of his many paintings. And so I decided I would paint along with this one as well. You see I'm starting out there with some Prussian blue up in the sky. Just putting down a nice active sky. Doing some crisscross strokes. Trying to make sure that you don't end up with just too uniform of a color across the whole sky area. Of course, I already have a layer of liquid white on the canvas there. Now, one thing I did do with this episode, in order to kind of do something special for the final of my first series here, is the video that I had of Bob, I watched at I think it was 3/4 speed. So instead of being normal speed, it was going quite a bit slower, which made it a lot easier to keep up and gave me a little bit more time to work on some of the details in this one, which I think you'll see. Also, the time he takes to answer the questions. He often pauses from the actual painting. All right, we finished up the sky there, and I've got kind of a mix there: Prussian blue, Van Dyke brown, alizarin crimson, and to make a nice dark mountain base color. And with my palette knife, just go in there in the sky and trying to set up a nice, sharp, defined peak there. I'm really trying to focus on getting the paint pushed into the canvas, not leaving too much on there, because you really are supposed to be scraping off pretty much all this paint here. And also really working on keeping that, outside edge of the mountain a nice, strong, crisp line as much as possible. Let's see, pull in and out there. Yeah, it definitely took me a lot longer to get this first series completed than I had hoped. I had originally thought, it might take a year. It's been more like 2.5, 3 years. But we got here. And I don't plan on stopping. It may be another long wait before, series 2 begins. But this is something that I've really found that I enjoy quite a bit. Not so much the editing, the video part of it, but I might try and get some help with that for future series. You can see I've brought my 2-inch brush out there, and it's just a dry brush at this point, maybe a little bit of the sky color still on there. Try and get a hair out of there and kind of pull the mountain down to continue those slopes and take it all the way to the edge of the painting. If you don't do that, then a lot of times you kind of end up with that white area. You can kind of see off to the right side there. Picking up some titanium white there on my knife. It's pure titanium white. Yeah, you'll see a few times where I kind of am waiting on Bob to finish answering his question. He's talking, of course, about the technique we're about to use, which is putting the snow on the mountain and really being light with that knife. Really just being a whisper across the canvas and letting that paint break. It's those breaks in the paint that really make it look like a mountain with rocks and crags and shadows. And of course, breaking up the snow. It's not just a solid coat of snow on top of a mountain, especially when the sun's shining at it. So a lot of different ways that light can play off the snow on a mountain. I'm really trying to focus on the slopes here and you know, trying to picture the mountains in my mind so that as I'm creating them, the strokes I'm making aren't just haphazard, but there's some meaning to it. Throughout this season, I've really been trying to make my mountains look a lot more natural, which I'm from Indiana, so that's difficult. I have very limited experience with mountains, and I'm trying to avoid basically just making a pile of pyramids, just triangle-shaped mountains. You know, I want something more craggy, something more interesting, and that kind of stuff just comes with practice and from exposure. I think it wouldn't hurt if I just spent some time looking at pictures of mountains and just kind of getting those images in my head. You know, that's something that Bob suggests a number of times in his episodes, is that, you know, spend some time, look at some pictures. You know, go to the library, check out a few books, photographic books, places you've never been before. Of course, this is before the internet, so with that resource, you can, you know, see just about anything. You can see I've shifted from using the just white over to using a shadowy color. I've added some blue and brown into that, or excuse me, blue and alizarin, I believe. And I'm just going back and forth, alternating between the two, just trying to bring out the slopes and the individual peaks, and, you know, like I said, trying to avoid the triangles, but you can see I still need some practice. Although this is definitely one of my best mountains, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The part that really bugs me is where the hair from the brush there kind of smacked into the sky, and you can see it. I don't know what you're supposed to do when that happens, so I just kind of just go with it and hope that the details in the rest of the painting will, you know, draw the eye away from it. With my 2-inch brush again, I'm really gently going through and tapping to make the base of the mountain misty, kind of pulling some of that down too to create an even mistier transition. Of course, a lot of the area I'm working on will be covered with trees and other foliage by the end of it, but, you know, it's important to work on each layer and make it look good, because the parts that don't end up getting covered, you know, you want those to look good. Now, being very gentle, I'm just pulling back up with that 2-inch brush now. It just kind of pulls everything together and makes the mist kind of look like it's traveling up the mountain, and just makes it all kind of set into the painting more and become a part of the painting instead of just being a mountain on top of the middle of the painting. You can see I had a little extra time here, so I'm just working on blending real good, and got a little extra hair, and I did really like it slowed down. I don't know if I'll continue that in future series, but I may just start doing that for all the episodes. It gave me a lot more time to focus, a lot more kind of breaks to relax, which was nice. You can see here I'm just kind of waiting to find out what will happen next. And it looks like it'll be something involving the 2-inch brush. Oh, and I forgot my sap green, didn't I? Yep, phthalo green is still green, right? Sure. Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing there when I realized I'd forgotten an entire color on the palette. But unfortunately, phthalo green, when you're mixing it in with other colors, makes for a nice, dark, rich, natural foliage green. I would have been happier with sap green. I feel like that's a little warmer green, and that would really make the foreground pop and add a lot of depth to the painting. But you got to go with it sometimes. It's the whole idea of Bob Ross paintings. Forgetting to put that on there, it wasn't a mistake. It was just a happy accident. Now, way up in the sky, we're starting to put in some trees. And we're putting a big one in there. And of course, when you're building trees, you always start with the shadow. Just adding tons and tons of shaded leaves and branches, and just every single time you kind of push down with that brush, it just adds that much more. So you can see when I'm pushing in a way that kind of bends the bristles down and kind of stamps the side of them onto the canvas. A lot of what you're doing when you're putting in these is just stamping. It's like you've got a stamp and you're just stamp, 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 stamp. And it's good to think about it like that when you're doing it too, because as you can see, a lot of these, all these are kind of very similar each time I stamp down with my brush. And to create something natural, you want to make sure that it's got some variation in there. And so turn it sideways, stamp like that a little bit. That changes the way that the lines run. It changes the length. It changes the feel of the plants you're creating. Switching back to my knife. And mixing up color there. Kind of some more of that background color, I think, for the plants and the foliage. I've got my 1-inch brush there, and I'm just dragging through that dark color that I've made there. Kind of a natural shadowy gray. And you can see I've pulled it sharp there so that it's to a point so that I can do this. Of course, we're making some more trees, but we're making a different kind of tree now. We're going to make some of our evergreen trees. To do that, we always start with a vertical line and then go in and zigzag back and forth. And as we zigzag, of course, we're getting wider and wider as the tree does. This technique is one that I've been working on, of course, throughout this whole series. And, when I started out, my trees were all very squat and very short. They got wide fast. But as I've practiced more and more, I've found that I can make taller, thinner, more natural looking trees. Now, of course, not every tree is going to be tall and thin like that. Some are short and squat and wide, and so it's fine to have some of those too. Just kind of mixing up some more of that color, kind of varying it just a little bit by adding a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that, by, of course, having slightly different shadow tones on all the different trees. That, you know, makes each tree individual, makes it look more like, you know, natural trees. You don't usually see a whole bunch of trees that are exactly the same color, even if they're, you know, all the same species and even descended from the same, you know, tree or set of trees. They're always going to come through as a little different. Of course, I would like take a moment to thank again everyone that supported me with my Indiegogo campaign for this. It was a huge motivation to help me get going. You know, without your support, I never would have been able to, you know, get myself to do this. I wouldn't have been able to, you know, justify the amount of money it cost for all the good Bob Ross paints and brushes, and you know, I wouldn't have felt as motivated to take the time and effort to, you know, to do everything. And so thank you. It really means a lot to me. I know this has taken a lot longer than I had said in my original Indiegogo campaign, but you know, it's just one of those things. Sometimes you just underestimate a project, and, you know, all the things that are involved in making an episode. You know, you can think about how long it takes to edit something, or how long it takes to sit down and film something, but you know, there's a lot of other factors, you know, life factors, and, you know, mindset factors, and that's all stuff that it's important to, I guess, take into account when you're kind of making estimates on how long things are going to take. With a project like this, you can never really be sure, though. Just putting in some more foliage, more trees and shrubs, and just trying to kind of vary up the way we're stamping that 1-inch brush now. I'd also like to thank, of course, everyone who's subscribed here to the channel. At the time I'm recording this, I've got over 100 subscribers. I think it was 118 subscribers, which it means a lot to me. Every single one of you, every time I see that there's a new subscriber, I just, it makes me feel good. And I really appreciate, you know, it doesn't take much to click the subscribe button, but it means a lot to me. You know, if you're watching this now and you haven't subscribed, please, you know, take a second, click that red subscribe button. If it's not red, then you are subscribed, so thank you very much. Your support really means a lot to me. Just knowing that people are watching, knowing that, you know, people care, it really does motivate me to keep going with these. Going back to the 2-inch brush there, it's time to do some serious filling in, which Bob is really fast at this. And even though I knew I was going to have a chance to catch up, he was going to pause again, answer another question, I still felt like I was falling behind, because, I mean, when he fills in part of the canvas, it's filled in, and it's fast. I'm trying to fill in, but also you can see I'm trying to vary it up, move it around, think about, you know, what kinds of plants might be where, how are they going to be spaced. You know, you're going to have a bunch of random clumps of grass. It's not going to be a lawn. This is out in nature. This isn't someone's backyard. I mean, maybe it is. I guess I'm making this up. I guess it could be someone's backyard. It's not my backyard. I wish it was. That's okay. Most of that grass, well, you'll see what we do with it here in a minute. Cleaning off the brush, though. Going in with the white and Van Dyke brown, kind of mix them together and make kind of a swirly mix because we don't want it to be too uniform. But putting those two together like that makes for a nice barky kind of texture. Of course, putting it on for the trunks and branches there and some of the trees. And when you're doing with this with the knife, it's kind of a combo thing. You know, sometimes you are putting paint from the knife onto the canvas, and sometimes it's just cutting right through what was there and showing the canvas underneath. And it just it's interesting, all the different things you can do with each one of these tools, and how sometimes, you know, when you're using one technique, you're using multiple techniques. And I think that's, you know, what really makes this painting style work is you do so much with so little in such little time that, you know, and you get such great results that it you know, it keeps you motivated and keeps you going. Whenever Bob's talking about how he used to paint with these one hair brushes, going in and painstakingly painting every single leaf on a tree, I just can't even imagine doing that. I have no interest in painting along with Bob Ross if he's going to be painting like that. But of course, we know that he didn't paint like that. You know, I still have 390 episodes of The Joy of Painting, where he, of course, uses this fantastic alla prima technique, or wet on wet technique, which, of course, he himself learned from Alexander. What was his first name? David Alexander? I feel like it was David Alexander. Sorry, I should have had that written down. Which I don't actually write down anything for these audio tracks. I'm sure you probably could have figured that out. But much like with the painting, I want it to be all kind of a one-take thing. Let it just kind of flow naturally. Of course, while I've been talking here, I have got my 1-inch brush back out. I picked up some liquid white. I moved it through some of the yellow and some of the green, and just kind of made my highlight colors and adding those on. Now, when you're adding your highlight colors, of course, you want to think about where the sun's coming from, which, because I'm right-handed, will typically be from the right side of the painting. You know, that's just according to Bob. That's how we do it. He's right-handed too, so that works out well for copying him. And of course, yeah, you want to make sure that you're putting more highlights, of course, on the corresponding side of the tree. And you want to, of course, have that uniform lighting across your entire painting, or it won't look right. As I'm doing this, I'm trying to vary up the color some so that each plant, once again, has its own little unique tone to it, a little unique flavor to it. Every time you stamp, you're not just putting paint on the canvas, you're also picking some paint up off the canvas onto the brush and altering those colors some more as you're doing so. Of course, that's what kind of pulls everything together, because you are mixing all these colors on the brush, and there's so much getting picked up and put back down and remixed in. It makes the feelings feel more, you know, whole, more one complete picture. You know, it's all one scene. It's not just a, you know, nothing's standing out or you know, too bright or too dull. It's all the same. I don't know how to say, the same kind of flavor, I guess would be the best way to say it. And just mixing up my tones a little more, changing them up a little bit. We're going with a little darker tone here this time, because we're going to be going onto a little darker tree. The greens a lot of times are a little darker. And again, I don't have to use as much highlights because of that, but there's still going to be some. And you can see that I'm keeping those for the most part onto the right side of the tree, or the parts that would be hit by light coming from the right side of the tree at least. And as I work my way down, picking up some of the darker colors from behind, and the paint on my brush there is just naturally getting darker and makes for more natural shadows moving down the tree. You can see I'm just taking my time, filling in the spots. Like I said, slowing the video down. Bob really made this a lot less stressful and gave me the time to add a few more things and take a little extra time. You don't want to spend too much time on it, or you can work something to death and add too much or muddy it too much, too many colors mixed together at once. So just kind of taking a pause here for a second. That was kind of one of the drawbacks of slowing it down. When Bob was just kind of talking, it was not a lot going on. Slowing it down did make Bob's voice sound pretty funny. So, I'd probably recommend that. If you don't know how to slow down a YouTube video, the little gear in the bottom right side there, if you click on that, it'll give you video options like your playback quality and then the playback speed. So you can speed things up or slow things down. I use it all the time on when I'm watching videos. If I'm watching Bob and I need to see something closer up or just whatever. If you're watching the news and you don't want to spend the time to listen to them in regular speed, speed them up a little bit. If you're watching me and you're like, come on, Alex, what's taking so long? I just click on that and go double speed and get my painting done in half the time. Now, one of the pieces of equipment that I did not use a Bob Ross branded product for, of course, my palette, my paint, my paintbrushes, my knives, all of those were Bob Ross branded. I felt like that was important, since he endorsed them with his name, that those would be about the best tools you could use for this type of painting. And really, I've been pretty pleased with it. I feel like my paints did what he said his paints should do. As I'm getting better at using them, I can see that, once I get better, I can even do more with them. But the canvases were not Bob Ross branded. And I think that really shows. I think that it shows in the quality of the paintings. You can see them bouncing around. I followed his advice. I went with real canvas and not canvas board. If you go with canvas board, it'll absorb the liquid from the liquid white, and it won't work. This painting technique won't work without adding tons and tons of liquid white. And I went with double primed for the same reason, by having 2 layers of I think it's white gesso is what the primer is, on these canvases before adding the liquid white. It keeps that canvas from soaking the liquid up and allows the wet on wet to actually work. Yeah, picked up some red there and some firecrackers. But yeah, it's important to vary these colors. When I first started doing this, adding orange and red and stuff, it always made me feel like, well, this is going to be a fall scene. But since doing this, I've noticed more things out in nature. Painting kind of gets you noticing things that you might not have noticed before. I thought I like nature. I thought I really kind of knew what was going on out there. Orange and red, those are fall colors. But no, if you look around, they're everywhere all the time. Nature just hides them in a sea of green for part of the year. and you have to look a little harder to find them. Cleaning that brush. Important to get it very clean here though, because now we'll be going in and adding some water. And it's a little different than when we usually add water in these paintings. Usually we're pulling paint down over an area where they're, where we've kind of pulled in from the sides and left a white area in the middle to kind of be a ray of sun. But this is Bob kind of showing you what to do if you just want to add some water halfway through your painting. It's not any different. You don't do the pulling in from the side, since that would need to have been done by now, but just take that 2-inch brush, pull straight down, nice and gentle, and then make sure to vary where you're pulling down from so that it's not just one straight line across or one solid curve. You want to have a nice natural looking shoreline, and then even more gentle, pull it across. This part is what really makes it look more watery. Pulling it down adds the reflection, but pulling it across adds the ripples and the movement and kind of the flow. You want to pull those lines as straight across as you can, because this is the way water and light and everything works in real life. But yeah, you definitely want to pull down and pull across to get a good water effect. Picked up some more liquid white there, and I'm going through with my 1-inch brush, just mixing those paints together. And now we're going to add some reflections. So I'm going to put a bush above water, and then put that same bush in the water. And I've got a lot of bushes already out of the water, so I'm just kind of going through and putting them in the water now. On that one, I found that I was adding one in the water without one above ground, so I just went ahead and stuck that one there. And you don't have to mirror exactly what's above it, because it's going to be blurry, because it's going to be a reflection. You're not seeing it from exactly the same angle. It's going to look different, and so you don't have to worry as much about making it an identical mirror image of what's above it. There may be times where you're painting something that's so calm and so glassy that you do want that, and that might be a really cool effect. But at this point, I haven't done any paintings like that, so I don't know. I like it this way, though, so far. Although there really haven't been too many techniques in this that I haven't liked. Real gentle coming in on the side there. Doing my best to pull straight across. If it's a little wavy there, it's not a big deal. The most important parts to get straight are when you're putting the water lines in, which I'll do here in just a minute. You can see how much more deliberate I'm being here than in some other paintings that I've done before, because a lot of times by the time I was getting to this point in the painting, I had fallen a bit behind Bob, and I was playing catch up a little faster than I would have liked. But by slowing the video down, this gave me the time to really think about how I was holding the brush, really focus on, how it was getting painted. Got my knife back out there, picking up some liquid white. yes. Mix in with some titanium white. Trying to get just the right amount, which is hard sometimes with the knife. Taking it off, adding some more. I don't know. You can see I look real confident there. See, I'm doing my best to go completely horizontal. Yeah, you can see there's a little timing difference between camera 1 and camera 2 there. Sometimes when I switch between them, especially towards the end of the video, I find that they're not quite in sync anymore, which has something to do with the frames per second. But like I said, I think I might seek some assistance with some of that before I get going on some future series, because I'd really like to improve, going forward. This is, my first series. I'm allowed to be a little bit more amateur in this one, but I just feel like, moving forward, I should continue to improve. My painting's going to get better. My videos should too. You can see I've picked up some Van Dyke brown there, and I've mixed it in with some of the white. Now I'm pulling it down to add just a sandy bank along there. Some exposed soil or rocks or whatever. One of the things about these paintings that Bob Ross does is that they're sort of photorealistic, but they're also fairly abstract in a lot of ways, and your imagination's filling in a lot more of the details than I think you realize when you just look at them for the first time. And these paintings do change the more you look at them. And from where you're looking at them, I know I've said it before, but when I'm painting these and I'm right up on them, they usually look a lot worse than they really do. But when you're right up on top of it and all the paint is still wet and a lot of glare coming off of it, and it just looks bad. But once I've stepped away from it for a while and I come back down and see it sitting on the easel there, it makes me feel pretty good knowing that I did that painting. Not all of them, but most of them. And it's important to like your art. If you don't, then, what are you doing it for? I mean, really. My wife got me a frame that's the size of these paintings, the 18 by 24 inch. And it's just the right size, in depth and everything, that I can, I've got it with some those Velcro 3M strips stuck on the wall, and I can switch out the paintings as I want, and they're always there. And if you want to make your paintings look great, if you really want to feel good about a painting, put it in a frame. I mean, it just it ties the whole thing together. It's amazing how different that is. It dresses it up. It makes it look formal. It makes it look like it's in a museum. It looks great. You really will feel good about your paintings if you do put them in an actual proper frame. And you should feel good about your paintings, without the frame too, because after all, you painted it. I mean, you put the effort and the time and the work. That's your creation. And I hope maybe a few people who've seen this will feel motivated to try creating some. It's not easy to get into painting, like I said. That Indiegogo campaign was essential for getting me into it. It was hundreds of dollars worth of paint and supplies just to do these 13 paintings. But there are opportunities that you can find, where you don't have to have all this stuff. You don't have to film yourself and put it on yourself on YouTube. Go to your local arts and crafts store. They probably have some sort of lessons available. Here in Muncie, Indiana, we've got, of course, the benefit of having Minnetrista, which is where The Joy of Painting was filmed for quite a few series in one of the buildings there. And they currently have the Bob Ross experience going on, where they've recreated his studio and they've got some of his paintings, and they even have painting classes where you can paint along with a trained instructor who is doing what I'm doing, but at a much higher level. And they can help you do it too. Yeah, if that's something you've ever thought about doing, or any kind of art, don't hold back. You only have so much time, and creating art really does make you feel like you've created something. It really does feel like you've accomplished something, and it gives you something you can look back on. I know that 20 years from now, I can look at this painting and I can still feel pretty good about it. It's not a masterpiece. I mean, it's definitely got its flaws. I mean, just look in the sky there above the mountain. The spot's still there, and I'm going to see it forever, but still, at the same time, there's a lot I can be proud of in this painting. I just hope you guys have gotten as much out of watching me paint as I have painting these. I'm sure, maybe, probably not, but yeah, do create if you can. It's a great feeling. As you can see, I'm just kind of finishing things up now. Oh, I'm picking up my script liner brush there and getting a little linseed oil and permanent red, which means it's time to sign it. So thanks again for watching. This is episode 13 of series 1 of Becoming Bob. I'm Alex. If you like what we're doing here, click the subscribe button. Tell your friends. Share it on Facebook. Like the episode. Leave a comment. I'm just glad you watched. There we go. All right. Well, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next series.